think there were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was of an astonishingly wide range.
For decades, royal watchers speculated about the unusual living arrangement between Queen Elizabeth II and her husband, Prince Philip. While the couple remained publicly devoted, whispers about why they often lived apart at times, especially in their later years, never truly faded. Was it distance born of duty, personal choice, or something deeper within the palace walls? Now, Princess Anne, the couple's only daughter, has finally spoken out, shedding light on what really happened behind the gilded doors of Buckingham Palace. In her rare and candid revelation, Anne didn't hold back. She painted a picture not of estrangement, but of independence, respect, and quiet understanding between two people who carried the weight of a nation. Her explanation silenced years of gossip and unveiled a truth that might surprise even the most loyal royal fans. What Anne shared wasn't a story of broken love, but rather one of deep admiration and unspoken compromise. And when she explained the reason Philip chose to live away from the Queen at times, it revealed a side of their marriage the public had never fully understood, until now. For much of their 73-year marriage, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip projected an image of unity, discipline, and royal grace. Yet, even the most loyal followers of the monarchy couldn't help but notice one odd detail: the royal couple often lived apart. The Queen resided primarily at Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, while Philip spent large stretches of time at Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. To outsiders, it looked like a royal separation in all but name, a mystery that sparked endless speculation. Over the years, rumors began to swirl. Some tabloids suggested that the Duke of Edinburgh had simply grown tired of palace life, longing for solitude after decades of royal duties. Others claimed there was tension between him and the Queen over how the monarchy was being run in modern times. There were even whispers of deep-rooted disagreements or emotional distance that neither would publicly acknowledge. Each new theory painted its own picture of what went on. Behind the palace gates, for those who remembered, the young Elizabeth and Philip and the couple who fell in love during World War II and shared private jokes at formal events. The idea of them drifting apart felt tragic. Many believed Philip's famously strong-willed personality clashed with the Queen's sense of duty. Where she was steady, reserved, and cautious, he was fiery, restless, and independent. To some, it seemed inevitable that two people so different would eventually find comfort in separate spaces. But royal insiders often defended the arrangement, insisting it was far from a sign of discord. According to those close to the family, Philip's decision to spend more time at Wood Farm was not born of resentment, but rather necessity, a desire for peace after a lifetime under public scrutiny. He wanted to live life on his own terms, one source once said. He'd earned it. Still, questions persisted. Why did the Queen, who valued tradition above all else, allow such an unconventional setup? Why didn't she demand that her husband remain by her side in London? For decades, the answers were guarded behind royal discretion, until Princess Anne finally decided to speak. Anne, known for her forthright nature, had seen the truth of her parents' marriage from the inside. She had watched the public misunderstand the very thing that defined her parents' relationship: mutual respect and understanding. When she finally addressed the rumors, she made it clear that what the world saw as distance was actually something far more profound, a quiet pact between two people who understood each other better than anyone else ever could. And as Anne began to explain, the reason her father chose to live apart from the Queen was not about escaping her, but about protecting the love they had built over a lifetime. For years, Princess Anne stayed silent while endless stories circulated about her parents' private life. As the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, she had witnessed their marriage up close, not as a royal subject, but as a child who understood the quiet rhythms of their relationship. So when she finally chose to speak about the truth, her words carried the weight of someone who had lived it, not speculated about it. In a rare interview, Anne dismissed the sensational rumors that her parents had grown apart. People forget they were married for more than 70 years, she said calmly. That kind of partnership doesn't survive on distance, it survives on understanding. She explained that her father's decision to live separately at Wood Farm, after retiring from public duties in 2017, was not a rejection of the Queen, but a reflection of their remarkable balance as a couple. According to Anne, her father had always been a man who valued purpose and independence. After decades of walking 2 steps behind the Queen at public events, Philip longed for something simpler: quiet mornings, time with his horses, and the chance to live like a private man again. He'd done his duty, Anne recalled, and Mummy understood that better than anyone. Anne revealed that the Queen actually encouraged Philip to live at Sandringham, knowing it made him happy. They spoke every day, she added. They were never truly apart. The couple's separation, Anne explained, was not emotional but practical, an arrangement built on respect. Philip found peace in his solitude, and the Queen found comfort in knowing he was content. Behind the grandeur of the monarchy, Anne said, her parents' relationship was surprisingly ordinary. They teased each other, shared private jokes, and had the kind of understanding that only comes from a lifetime spent together. They didn't need to be in the same room to feel connected, she said with a faint smile. They just knew. Her words revealed a side of the royal marriage few had seen before. The image of a distant husband and dutiful queen dissolved into one of deep companionship. 2 people who loved each other enough to give one another space. Anne said that both of them valued independence. Her father found it in his retirement, and her mother found it in her ongoing sense of duty. Anne also noted that her father's health played a role in his retreat to Wood Farm. The simplicity of the countryside and the quiet life away from the palace gave him a chance to live out his days peacefully, surrounded by memories of their younger years. It wasn't a goodbye, Anne said softly. It was just the way they wanted things to be. Her revelation finally silenced the long-running debate about their marriage. What the world mistook for separation was, in fact, a powerful expression of love, one that valued freedom as much as togetherness. And as Anne spoke about the unbreakable bond between her parents, it became clear that the Duke and the Queen had written their own definition of love, one that lasted until his very last day, when Princess Anne shared the truth about her father's decision. To live apart from the Queen, she revealed something that very few people outside the family had ever understood. Prince Philip's move to Wood Farm wasn't about escape, conflict, or discontent. It was about freedom, dignity, and preserving the marriage he cherished for over 7 decades. Philip had always been a man of action. Before becoming the Duke of Edinburgh, he served in the Royal Navy and lived by a strict sense of purpose. For most of his life, he thrived on discipline, routine, and self-reliance. But when the Queen ascended the throne in 1952, everything changed. Overnight, Philip's identity shifted from naval commander to royal consort, a role that required him to stand in the background while his wife became the most powerful woman in the world. It was not an easy transition. Those who knew him best said that he struggled to find his place within a system that demanded silence and restraint. Still, he adapted, not out of obligation, but out of love for the Queen. For decades, he walked 2 steps behind her, quietly supporting her through every public event and political crisis. Yet deep down, Philip remained the same independent spirit he had always been. So when he retired from public duties in 2017 at the age of 96, he saw an opportunity to reclaim a piece of himself. According to Anne, he told his mother simply, "I've done my bit." Moving to Wood Farm at Sandringham was his way of stepping back with grace, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of love. He knew that if he remained at Buckingham Palace, he would always be drawn into the demands of royal life. Living apart allowed him to rest, reflect, and live quietly on his own terms. Wood Farm was small, simple, and unpretentious, exactly the kind of place Philip loved. He cooked his own meals, read books, entertained a few close friends, and enjoyed long walks on the estate. To him, it was a return to normalcy after decades of ceremony. He didn't need grand halls or red carpets, Anne said. He wanted peace. What made his decision even more poignant was that the Queen fully supported it. She knew her husband well enough to understand that giving him space wasn't a sign of distance. It was a gesture of respect. Their relationship had always been built on trust, and this was no exception. They had an extraordinary understanding, Anne explained. They allowed each other to live the way they needed to. Even while living separately, Philip and the Queen spoke frequently. When the Queen wasn't at Windsor, she would travel to Sandringham to visit him, often staying for days. Those close to the family described their time together as relaxed and tender. Two old companions who didn't need grand gestures to show affection. Anne's account revealed a deeper truth about love. That sometimes, allowing space can strengthen a bond rather than weaken it. Prince Philip didn't live apart because he wanted to leave. He did it because he wanted to stay himself, while still being the man the Queen fell in love with. It was his way of honoring both his identity and his marriage, and as Anne gently reminded the world, he never stopped being by her side, even when he wasn't in the same house. After decades of royal duty and endless public scrutiny, few would have blamed Prince Philip for wanting a quiet life in his final years. But what the world didn't know, until Princess Anne revealed it, was how deeply the Queen respected and supported that wish. Behind closed doors, Queen Elizabeth II honored her husband's independence in ways that went unseen by the public, showing a kind of devotion that was both private and profound. Anne shared that her mother never once tried to convince Philip to return to Buckingham Palace permanently. She understood that the man she had loved since her teenage years was never meant to live in constant confinement. "Mummy knew he needed that space," Anne said softly. She never stood in his way. For a monarch who ruled by tradition, that decision spoke volumes about her strength and her understanding of love. When the Queen visited Wood Farm, she left behind much of the formality that defined her daily life in London. There were no servants waiting in every room, no rigid schedules, and no ceremonial obligations. At Wood Farm, they lived like any ordinary elderly couple, dining together, watching television, and talking late into the evening. It was, as one aide described, their little world, untouched by protocol. Those who worked closest to them said the Queen's face would light up whenever she saw Philip. Despite their separate residences, their connection remained unbreakable. The Queen often sent handwritten notes to him and made sure he was updated on family matters. She took comfort knowing he was happy in his quiet retreat, surrounded by the countryside he loved. They understood each other's silences, Anne said. That's what made their bond unshakable. In truth, the Queen's decision to let Philip live at Wood Farm was one of the most significant acts of love in royal history. She could have easily insisted he remain near her. After all, she was the monarch. But instead, she chose compassion over control, giving him the freedom to spend his final years in peace. It was her silent way of saying, "I love you enough to let you be yourself." Even in their physical distance, their emotional closeness endured. The Queen's staff recalled that she often reminisced about the early days of their marriage, before the crown, before the duties, when they were simply Elizabeth and Philip, a young couple in love. Wood Farm, in many ways, allowed them to return to that simplicity. When Philip passed away in April 2021, the Queen reportedly found comfort in knowing he had lived exactly as he wished. His death at Windsor Castle, just weeks before his 100th birthday, was marked by a private, deeply personal farewell. And though the world saw a stoic monarch sitting alone at his funeral, those close to her said she took solace in the knowledge that she had given him the gift he wanted most: freedom. Anne summed it up best when she said, "They were never apart in spirit. What they had was built on respect, and respect means letting the other person live freely." It was a love story not of fairy tales, but of quiet understanding. Two people who spent a lifetime balancing duty and devotion. And through her actions, Queen Elizabeth proved that the truest form of love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means letting go with grace,